Welcome to the Life Makeovers podcast. My name is Cindy D. Whitmer, and I am the Midlife Makeover Coach, helping you turn your midlife into your best life, one step at a time. Through powerful conversations, my own midlife roller coaster story, and over 3 decades of helping people transform their lives through counseling and coaching, I am on a mission to help you create your own definition of success and happiness. Thank you for being here. Hey, everybody, it's Cindy here. Good morning. Thank you so much for being here. So the other day on my Monday morning boost, I talked about, disappointment and the Maya Angelou quote, when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. That's such a good one, right? Anyway, and I promised that I would dive deeper into the feeling of disappointment. And I want to talk about that, especially in terms of our relationships, because I know that all of you have felt this before in your lives and probably thousands of times, right? By the time we're in midlife, we've probably been disappointed many times, and we've probably disappointed other people as well, either knowingly or unknowingly, right? I mean, this is what happens sometimes. So I looked up in Brene Brown's book, The Atlas of the Heart, because that is a book about all kinds of feelings and research she's done around all kinds of feelings. And she defines disappointment as unmet expectations. Unmet expectations. And goes on to say that the higher and more specific the expectation, the higher the disappointment level if it does not happen. And so I like the simplicity of a lot of Brene Brown's definitions of emotions and so forth in that book. Well, really in all of her books. But I thought that was great, unmet expectations. And so let's talk about expectations in relationships. We develop ideas in our mind about how things are going to go, right? We have expectations of what is this romance going to be like, or how are my kids going to grow up, or what are they going to be like when they're adults, or when I get to be a grandma, what's that experience going to be, or whatever. And or marriage is going to look like this or feel like this, or the career path is going to be this, or it goes on, or I'm going to stay young, vital, and healthy and look like this until I'm 80, or right? And then life happens, right? And things don't always go as we hope in our lives. And so then we're disappointed. Well, I have run into this. I've bumped up against this quite a bit lately. And actually, I recently visited some of my kids out of state. And I was, they're all out of state, but I was talking with my daughter-in-law, and she is bumping up against this also. She was sharing with me that she's relatively new in the town she lives in, and so forth, and she's had some people invite her and her children, my grandchildren, to meet for play dates and library time for the kids and things like that. And so they've been invited, and then she goes, and then they don't talk to her. These new people, these potential friends or sort of friends or trying to become friends people, then have not really talked to her or not sat with her at these events that they've invited her to. And it's been kind of awkward for her. She's like, what's the deal? They invite me and then they don't talk to me. I'm like, oh, geez, I don't know. Yeah, that's confusing. It's very confusing, and it's been disappointing to her because she wants to make new friends, and she wants to find friends who have young children like herself, like she does. And these people meet this criteria. But so we talked about that, how you have expectations. You think it's a pretty low to reasonable expectation that if somebody invites you out socially somewhere, that they will indeed interact with you Oh gosh, but that has not been her experience, oddly enough. Anyway, so we talked about that, and then as I shared on Monday, I had a fellow coach I know not follow through with a podcast interview we had scheduled, and the communication was not great. And how that was, I was disappointed in that, but that had actually been a pattern over the years for me with her. And so I probably should have known better, honestly. Um, but anyway, so then in my own life, where has disappointment come up lately personally in my relationships? Well, some of you may have heard that I'm getting married. It's a midlife marriage, it's a second marriage, and well, I don't even know why I'm saying that. It's just a lovely, wonderful experience, to be in love again in my 50s and have this wedding coming up and so forth. So we're in the big, wedding plans are a big part of our life right now. And so we sent save the date messages to some of our closest people and so forth, because we're kind of having an intimate gathering at our own home and property and so forth and that kind of thing. And so we're being very, very particular about who we invite, just keeping it as intimate as we can. And anyway, so there's 5 women in my life who I consider my 5 best friends. All of these women have been in my life for decades. I mean, like decades. And we've all been very close, very steadily close over the years, over the decades and so forth. But several of them live far away. I mean, way far away from me, in the same country, but quite far away. So we don't get to see each other very often and so forth. But anyway, not one of them, but 2 of them in just recently have told me that they are not coming to my wedding. And I am so disappointed. I am so disappointed that they're not. I mean, I had this vision, just like Brene Brown teaches in her Atlas of the Heart book. When we have expectations, we start to develop this picture in our mind of exactly how something's going to be. We see it, we smell it, we taste it. We have such detail in this movie in our mind of how something's going to be. And so, of course, about our wedding, I've had many, many thoughts around all of that. But one of them that I really started loading up in my mind was, wow, this could be the one time in my life that I have all 5 of my closest women friends together with me at the same time. And I even thought about having our photographer take a picture of just me with those 5 women. Like, I had started to even go down that path in my mind, thinking that, unless the earth rotated off the axis or someone died or was hospitalized or something unexpected, that all 5 of these women would be able to be here. And the 2 that aren't coming have some circumstances that they've, that has evolved into them making the decision not to come. And those are their private circumstances, and I'm not going to share them here, but they both, reached out and explained their situations to me. And I hear them, like I can hear, their concerns and their reasons, what's going on in each of their lives that have nothing to do with me or our friendship. But still, I feel the disappointment of it, right? I still feel the disappointment, like, oh my gosh, it's the biggest day of my life. And, the most important day of my life, and they're going to miss it. And how sad that is, how disappointing that is. And I expressed my disappointment, even though I think I adequately expressed my understanding to each of them individually as well. And one of them particularly acted shocked how disappointed I was. I think she was kind of shocked. And I'm like, well, why are you shocked? Like, you're one of my best friends and we are so close. And I was surprised that she was surprised. I mean, I wasn't trying to instill guilt or anything. I was just being honest. And like I said to each of them, well, you are being honest with me about what you need, what's going on with you, and what's happening that you feel like you cannot come to the wedding. And I'm being honest back and saying, I am so sad. I'm so disappointed. It's the one chance that, all our kids, grandkids will be here all at the same time. I can't imagine any other time because our kids live all over the world and so forth. So it's really difficult to get all of us together. And I thought, oh, they're going to get to meet all our kids and grandkids, and we'll have this picture and they'll witness this loving ceremony that Ed and I are planning. And so that's my recent disappointment. And again, it's just like Brene Brown defines, it's an unmet expectation, right? Now, it's not earth shattering. Everything's okay. Life goes on. And at the end of the day, Ed and I are still going to be married and have a ton of support around us. And it's going to be a lovely, wonderful event. So that's all good in the hood, right? But I know, I bet you guys can understand this disappointment that I feel. I bet you can understand, right? And so I want you to think about some of your own disappointments. One of my biggest disappointments in life has been, of course, my first marriage was just a disaster compared to what I thought it would be. That was a huge disappointment, and I couldn't get him to work on the marriage, and he didn't even really seem to care what I thought was important, which was another huge disappointment. I mean, so I know you guys, a lot of you have been through divorces or you've had your spouses die. I mean, the laundry list of disappointments you may have encountered that were life altering by this point in your lives, I know are astronomical. So I realize, my friends not showing up for this wedding, a couple of it doesn't compare to some of the life altering circumstances you all have been through, as well as me. But anyway, whether we have what we might call big disappointments or small disappointments, here's some ways to manage disappointment. Okay. Whatever you're feeling right now, maybe you're disappointed in a friend. Maybe you're disappointed in a sibling. Maybe you're disappointed in your kids. Maybe you're disappointed in your spouse or yourself or who knows, your boss. I don't know who, but I'm sorry for whatever disappointment you're going through, but here's some ways to manage it. Okay. First of all, understand number one, hear me loud and clear. Their behavior, whoever's disappointing you, their choices, their thoughts, their needs, their behavior is only about them, right? It's about them, their life, what they need, what they're believing, what they're going through themselves. It is not personal against you. You may not believe this from me at all, but I promise you it is true. And I'm sure you can see that in my example for sure, that these two friends of mine are not trying to personally upset me, or they're not coming because of something I did or didn't do. It's totally outside of our friendship. They have circumstances, each very different circumstances that have led them to this decision. And so it's not about me, it's about them. And the truth is that even like my other example of like my first husband and him not being willing to do the work to help our marriage, and, the disappointment in how he treated me in the marriage and the problems that we had and so forth, and how our relationship evolved more destructively as time went on, that his behavior was not about me either. His behavior was about him. He was behaving from the level of capacity that he had at the time, or doing what only he knew to do or was willing to do or able to do. And it wasn't about me that he behaved that way. My behavior in the marriage and in friendship and in everything I do now is about me. My behavior, my thoughts are about me. but not yours. Okay. So your thoughts and behavior are about you, but other people's are about them. So sort that out every time. When you feel disappointment, start sorting that out and go, wait a minute, what's about me and what's about them? And make sure that you're clear about that. And that'll help you deal with the disappointment more easily, right? And remember that anytime we actually do have expectations about anything at all, anything, a meal, a relationship, a wedding, a job, a house, a health situation, anything at all, that expectations are, you know, they're, they are, well, I can't remember who said it, but somebody out there in the world said they're planned disappointments. Some famous person in the personal development world said, expectations are planned disappointments, which is an interesting way to define that. But I think what the person was referring to, I wish I could remember who it was and quote them directly. Sorry about that. But I think the point was is that when we load up expectations on anything, we are setting ourselves up to be disappointed, right? Because the more we do that, oh, it's going to be this way, it's going to look like this, it's going to smell like that, it's going to touch like that, it's going to be all like that, it's going to feel like this. We're just making a big old list in our mind that is likely to not be able to come out all just how we wrap it in a tiny bow in our heads. So watch out for that. Okay, and then remember the Maya Angelou quote that I shared the other day, when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. So not that we don't ever give people second chances, or not that it's not that, but it's like, just see people for who they are, right? See yourself for who you are, and see other people for who they are and how they act and what they choose and how they think. And remember that kind of big picture, okay, as you're dealing with life and your relationships. And that might ease some of your disappointment as well. So one of the relationships where I have been disappointed chronically is with my relationship with my mother. And gosh, sorry, Mom, but it's true. I mean, she's not listening to this podcast. She doesn't even have the internet. She doesn't believe in having the internet. But anyway, there's chronic negativity there, in my opinion. And she never really got into being a grandmother to my children in the way I was hoping and expecting. There's that word again. Actually, she's never shown a lot of interest in me at a level I would have liked her to as a mother. Again, expectations. I mean, motherhood is one of those words, the word mom, that we throw so many expectations on, right? On ourselves as moms, and then on our moms as our moms, right? Moms should be this, moms should be that, moms should be this way, moms should show up that way, grandmas should show up this way, grandmas should show up that way. And I'm telling you, I've had just disappointment after disappointment after disappointment. And so it's like after years of that, decades of that, there should not be any surprises anymore, right? And I don't think I am anymore. And I'm not sure I go to disappointment really anymore either, when I see her, showing up kind of the same ways that were so disappointing in the past, because now my expectations are basically nothing, and I'm pretty ambivalent about it, which doesn't sound very nice. But that is another thing, is we want to manage our expectations based on reality. Some people are not able to be who you want them to be and how you want them to be. And you can keep them in your life or not keep them in your life, but that's a choice. Or you can minimize how much they're in their life. You can shift the dynamics of the relationship, or the time invested, or the emotional investment, or whatever, if things are chronically, disappointing to you. But anyway, you want to manage your expectations and base your expectations on reality. And when you can do that, your disappointment levels will go way down, right? So I'm not saying lower your standards. I'm saying manage your expectations based on the truth of how you experience the people you have relationships with. If I would have remembered how many times that colleague I talked about on Monday had not shown up, had rescheduled, had not communicated well, I would never have tried to schedule a podcast interview with her again. But I let myself talk myself into believing that for some reason, a couple years later, it would be different, that somehow the passage of time and her enthusiasm she showed when I invited her to do a podcast interview, that somehow it would be different. And it wasn't the exact situation. Okay. So we want to manage our expectations based on reality. Okay. Okay. So I would say, as a final point around all of this, is that is a question that I'm asking myself now. And this is really important. This is really, really important. And I don't think you're going to expect me to say this. But one of the things you can ask yourself when you're experiencing disappointment, besides how can I manage my expectations differently or manage my disappointment differently, is what do I need to do differently to have a better experience in this situation? What do I need to do differently to have a better experience? Okay. So back to my friends in the wedding. So one of the things I knew I needed to do to have a better experience was to focus on their needs, what they're going through, and being very compassionate and understanding around what is concerning each of them in their lives. Like, I really care about these women a lot, love them a lot, care about them a lot. And I don't want to lose sight of that just because I'm disappointed or upset with them right now, right? Or whatever. So one of the things I know I need to do differently to have a better experience is to remember they're going through some things that are really stressing them out and concerning them, and be supportive, because I like my supportive self. I like my compassionate self. I want to be a peaceful, loving person in my life and in the lives of those, people around me. And so I want to make sure I don't lose that part of myself just because I am also sad or disappointed, right? So what can you do differently to have a better experience? Another thing that I'm doing differently to have better experiences with my mother, for example, is I don't expect anything from her now. I literally expect nothing in my relationship with my mother, because she is not able to show up in ways that I would have liked her to throughout my life. I mean, she's 79 years old. I'm almost 56. I think we know that we are who we are. And I just, it's so much easier in that scenario not to expect anything from her, really. So then I can just enjoy and delight in the good times that we have, or the enjoyable, conversations we have when we have them, and just keep it at that. I mean, honestly, she barely knows Ed, the man I'm marrying. I've been with him for almost 6 years. He has come to see her with me. We visited her together in her home a couple of times, and then at some events, family events together and so forth. She barely knows him. She just does not, she doesn't invest in really getting to know people. It's just not her forte. And so, that's how it is. I'm no longer going to attempt to, try to make that happen. I used to try to make that happen. When my kids were growing up, I used to take them and they go, "Here's your grandma. See, here's your grandma," and say to, "Mom, okay, here are your grandchildren. Get to know them." And she just barely, it's just not her. It's just not how she shows up. It's just not her thing. So one of the ways I have a better experience is when I feel it's appropriate, I just let go of all expectation and just ride and enjoy what I can about the ride of a relationship, and the rest, whatever. So So manage your expectations, right? Really manage them based on the truth, and then your disappointment level will go down in your life. And then focus on what's working well in your life, what's working well in your relationships, and always, always do a check-in with yourself. Are you showing up in your life the way you really want to? Because what you can do in life is not change other people or change their minds about things they've decided or how they feel they need to show up in your relationships with them or whatever. Not change their behavior, but change your own. So I'm going to make sure that I'm in touch with how I want to be in my relationships. And I'm going to make sure I'm in touch with the actions I want to take or I do not want to take in my relationships with other people, based on my experiences with myself and in those different relationships. So anyway, I hope this was helpful. I would love to hear from you, emailing me, Cindy at cindydwhitmer.com, and tell me what you think about these episodes, or what's speaking to you, what's not speaking to you. Let me know if you have questions or what you're dealing with. I'd love to hear from you as listeners. It's a great joy to have interaction with you. So thank you for those who do. And I will talk to you again soon. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for listening to the Life Makeovers podcast. Please like, subscribe, and share this podcast with those that you think would also benefit from what we're doing here. And I will talk to you again soon.